What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the debut album by the Filthy Spectacula. Basically, this product is called Thrup'ny Upright, and it came out in the spring of 2016. So basically, I got the tip off from this particular band, and the vocals from this band, Mr. E from Jackal Goldkick, as far as those pitches kind of happened. After I was finishing up, getting done with Ghostfire, as I was kind of finishing up with the Ghostfire reviews, as far as those pitches kind of happened, Jackal Goldkick kind of gave me the tip off that the vocalist from Ghostfire, who had basically left Ghostfire around the early 2010s, as far as those pitches kind of happened. If you notice, like on the Skull, I forget what that one's called, but the Ghostfire EP from 2013 actually had a chick on there, so it's a different vocalist from Ghostfire from that particular point forward. The Ghostfire didn't last too much longer past 2011 when Mr. E left, but Mr. E was the vocalist on the first three Ghostfire projects. So it's just the pitch. He got a new band as far as those pitches going to happen. But basically, this particular band here, the Filthy Spectacular, is pretty relatively mostly excellent. I'd have to say it's basically like the continuation of Ghostfire from the pitches of what they did with like the last Steampunk Waltz and some of their other hit projects like Drunk Lullabies and some of those type ones to kind of get at least the first three Ghostfire projects. Now, it's not to say anything against like the Skeleton Coast. That's what the 2013 EP was called. Don't know what happened to particularly Ghostfire with the chick that was on there. It's pretty dope stuff that they did as well. Was just kind of the concept. So Ghostfire was something that just kind of just went off into limbo pitches like that. Hopefully we can get some more Ghostfire, but particularly Filthy Spectacular has dropped a number of projects. There's not a ton of folks that seemingly really realize that Filthy Spectacular is the continuation, for the most part, spiritually at least, of Ghostfire. Just would have to say Mystery kind of did some of this stuff in particular. So it's an excellent type pitch to kind of get here. It's some good stuff. Just continue some of those trends. If you do like songs like The Last Steampunk Waltz and Hand of Glory, some of the more notable Ghostfire songs, other songs like The Man and Vaudevillain or Vaudevillian, some of those type of ones, I would have to say it has like relatively for the most part Ghostfire quality in space, but because of the offhandedness of the particular steampunk type styles, dark cabaret, some of those type pitches, steampunk, pirate punk core, some of these type ones, kind of gypsy pirate punk shanty type music. I'd have to say shanty type music. I'd have to say it's just kind of the concept that it's not the most immediate kind of user friendly. I'd have to say, but it's not like this is a bad product. This is once again, if you have not developed a taste for Ghostfire and some of their hits, even especially apart, like if you at least like The Last Steampunk Waltz and Hand of Glory, some of those type pitches, at least some of Ghostfire's biggest songs, this kind of has more of a learning curve here, but it is mostly good type music. Now I feel like there are a few drab songs on here. I'd have to say it's not like a full blown classic like some of the ones I've given Ghostfire, but definitely is a it's definitely some quality steps in the right direction. It is a rather exciting type project for folks that may have thought that Ghostfire just expired after that. So it's a good concept that Mystery continue with the new band and mostly continues to have that quality. I'm not sure as to how tough Thrup'ny Upright is kind of I'm not sure how tough Thrupny Upright is kind of to be able to track down as far as those pitches kind of happen. I would assume it's at least on iTunes or Amazon, some of those type pitches, but he's just kind of more low key for the most part. The most popular song, which is unfortunately not a song I recommend on here, only has like 9,900 plays on Spotify. So it's just kind of the concept. Most of these just have probably about 2,000, 3,000, 1,500 type hits as far as that particular kind of goes. But looking after it, considering that this was released 8.5 years ago, I just would have to say it probably needs a lot more circulation as far as those particular pitches kind of happen. But there is some good stuff. In spirit, this is a very good, excellent type follow up here. It has the same mostly components of Ghostfire, just with that same haunting typeness. There's a lot of good stuff, a lot of good treats on here to kind of get that. So I do recommend fucking with this just to kind of see some stuff about it. But so I'll just go ahead and say, like, I'm not sure if there were any singles from this particular product, but there are at least two songs to kind of talk about here within the relative promotion cycle of it. I would at least say Drink Ski Song was a new version of a Ghostfire song, so I'm going to talk about that one first. I'm going to talk about that one first because that might as well be a single as far as those pitches going to happen. Then the most popular song off this particular album would be The House of Ill Repute, which I would have to say is not a song I recommend, but still relative one. Has almost 10,000 hits on here, which is surprising that this is the most popular song. There are far better, way better songs on this particular product, but it is I don't know, it's this kind of thing. But yeah, basically Drinksky song is like a glazed kind of pioneer like bar hop soiree. I would have to say here is like a throwback kind of Ghostfire vibes that this song particularly kind of gives, and it's like some dope. This song is definitely like some dope kind of cabaret get throwed type music, but get throwed for folks that don't know lingo. It's get fucked up, get torn up, get crunk, some of that typeness to kind of get there. Basically, good pitch. Just classic Ghostfire, just within the tone. Songs like The Man, some of those type pitches. Songs like Hand of Glory, some of those type ones. Just being able to say, just throwback to like pioneer type days, 1800s. It's basically swash kind of bar hopping just within the relative tone behind it. Just really like the cabaret type pitch of this in particular as far as that would kind of happen. Some good get crunk type fare This really feels like a vintage kind of Ghostfire song within a sense, and it just proves that the Filthy Spectacular is definitely someone that has some potency just about this within the tone about what they continue to do. So Mystery he sounds just like he did on the Ghostfire type stuff, just the same haunting typeness to kind of get here. It's the same sort of pitch just within that particular tone. So it's another excellent type highlight. This might as well be the single. It's just kind of it's one of the more popular songs here. I think it's like the second most popular song according to Spotify, but this is definitely an immediate one to go for. I'm going to try to list some of the immediate ones to go for off this particular project in terms of some of the tones behind it, because I realize that the learning curve, you may think some of this 1800s type sound that just feels like ripped out of like a Lord of the Rings or like some sort of movie like that would have more kind of like very ancient kind of pastiming. Just feels like Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings, some pitches like that, just tones like that from more fantasy like driven type stuff. But just the concept, I do like this dark cabaret type stuff because it mixes like some good stuff here. It definitely has some makeshift on here. It does have like some bar hopping typeness to kind of get to some good concepts of a lot of these good dance type tunes, just some kickback, just like some beer mugs and some of those type pitches. It's actually a pretty good concept kind of get this in particular. It may, so if you're expecting like City Flash, obviously this is not going to be it, but it does have the concept just behind like the pitch of just really just a more kind of theme ed type concept of like some throwback kind of like things that are more Game of Thrones esque and just more like frontier and kind of pastiming, just more cottage type music, just within the tone of just like a mean streak of like a dark kind of haunting vibes about it. So it's a good pitch. But so yeah, to talk about the House of Ill Repute, basically I just didn't like the overall amalgamation of this particular one. House of Ill Repute was just kind of a showboating type one in a more homely type sense. Just didn't really have as much immediacy towards it. I mean, some of these in particular, like I said, the instrumentation is kind of an acquired taste. So when it doesn't hit as heavily, when it's kind of in less of like when it just kind of is more just spread out, not necessarily having like as much like it's this kind of, like I was saying, the instrumentation is just more of like an acquired taste. So when it just kind of has like a more homely type fashion, doesn't have as much snap towards it, just kind of more spread out, just like a more lazy type tone, just doesn't really have as much full blown appeal. But that's pretty much, I mean, there's not tons of duds on this particular project, but it's a decent project for the most part. It definitely is like a good step in the right direction, has a lot of appeal within the mostly sense behind it. But I do feel like it just probably needed some trimmings in terms of like the conduct of some of the songs on here. But I'll go ahead and recommend the song. So basically, out of 13 songs on here, I wound up recommending 8.5. So it's pretty mostly damn good. I'd have to say it's the 8.5 songs I recommend would be Drinksky Song, Jack the Knife, Thieves in the Night, Ode to Drunk Romeos, No Sympathies, Marie Laveau, Against the Wall, World Famous Extravaganza, and the almost song is Murder of Crows. So basically, Murder of Crows is like a hard rock kind of bar noise. I would definitely feel like here there's like some very familiar settings in terms of like the production fare of this. This feels like a Western kind of John Wayne type feel and something of that relative pitch, kind of where you go to like a saloon or something like that, where it have like the music where it goes da 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 da, that particular pitch. You just one of those type songs that kind of has that Western type feel, and you just look after it's just a real rugged kind of bruiser bop to kind of get here to something for like a more hard rock cafe, just more beer mug swing pitches like that, motorcycle bar, some of those type pitches kind of get. It's probably there are a couple of hard rock bar type songs on here. It's just a different pitch. Ghostfire probably wouldn't have done some of these type of vibes, but there's at least two songs, Marie Laveau and Murder of Crows, that have some of this particular kind of more relatively contemporary. That's not as much like mid 1800s, but just has a little bit of maybe like the 1930s or the early 1950s, some of those type pitches, just with the more kind of Western type. I almost want to say spaghetti Western, but just within the tone behind it, just relatively, it's kind of grizzled and just it's kind of more grizzled type tone, I'd have to say, within the tone behind it. But Murder of Crows is just an almost song, so I just don't know how frequently I would listen to this one. I mean, there are some ones I do like, some of this dark cabaret type sound, some of this throwback type pitch, just to kind of get with like some of that shanty typeness just within the tone behind it. I do appreciate some of these saloon hop, bar hopping type ones, but it's kind of questionable how many times I would fuck with Murder of Crows just within that relative pitch. Not like it's a horrid song, but it's just kind of the concept that I just question the immediate factor behind it. But Marie Laveau is probably a better one. This one has a little bit more radio snap towards it. This is not one of the most immediate ones, but it definitely has some good bounce enough to it to where it's one that just gets some. Marie Laveau is just a good one that gets some rump shaking, acid shaking as far as those pitches will kind of happen with it. Just a good bop to kind of get here just within the tone behind it. It's probably one that it has like a relative good dance snap about it in a more retro sense, but it's a nice one. It's like a great throwback to hard rock kind of bar hop noise. I'd say about this one, just a stock hitter for like running up beer tabs pitches like that. And this is just a good mingle song to kind of get here. So Marie Laveau is probably one in like the top half of the songs I would recommend first as far as those pitches gonna happen. There's definitely some better ones. I probably feel like some of the best songs on here would be Against the Wall, Ode to Drunk Romeos, and Thieves in the Night. I'd have to say along with Drink Ski Song. Those are some of the most ones that have like harness like the best moments of Ghostfire with songs like Last Steampunk Waltz and Hand to Glory, plus Vaudevillian, some of those type ones, and the Man, some of those type pitches, just some real immediate type Ghostfire type pitches, kind of get just a lot of those tones. I mean, there's other Ghostfire bops that kind of have that relative tone, but when you think of Ghostfire's most moments where you're just really getting to dancing, really clinking beer mugs, pitches like that, just enjoying like the night and just getting swashed, some of those type tones, just be able to have just mingle and pitches like that. I feel like at least Marie Laveau is like a good thumper for that relative pitch. It's kind of an extra kind of bonus cut amongst. I would definitely say this is one amongst like some of like the immediacy of a lot of this project. That's the nice one. No Sympathies is a pretty quality one as well as like a glazed kind of moody ruminating. I'd have to say while out and about, I would feel like it's like some local kind of bloodletting, just get food kind of on like a ruffled day, kind of a bad hair day for the most part as far as those pitches kind of happen. I just look after it. Now look after this is like a tone that Ghostfire would kind of do on some of their albums, just with more kind of like throwback dredge as far as those pitches going to happen. By throwback, it's kind of a lot more cabaret type dredge. It's kind of something that you would get to 4 o'clock p.m. Some of those type pitches, just the standard slag of like makeshift like bands like Alien Ant Farm and more alternative rock, alternative metal type vibes, just with the more retro type sense. So basically, if you were to take like some alternative metal, something like that, or post grunge, some of those type tones with some of that slag of just like 4 o'clock p.m. that kind of dredgy kind of ruminating pitches like that, just in the car vehicle traverse pitches like that, just like some retro type feels like Ghostfire and some of those type cabaret type bands. I'd say No Sympathies is basically a song for that. Excellent type pitch. Thieves in the Night is a real quality one. This is definitely one of the more immediate ones to go for. It's like a primped and kind of fancier cabaret dance noise. I feel like about this one. It's another good social bop to kind of get here just out and about. It's like Ghostfire with like pristine kind of show. This would be like something Ghostfire would do with like a pristine kind of showboating type vibe about it. And it's just an overall dope song. So this one probably this is like a more rosy type one. There are a couple of flirty, nice ones on here to kind of get just within the tone behind it. Real excellent pitch. Songs like Thieves in the Night and Against the Wall are some real nice ones for that relative type, like that relative type pitch. It's more rousing, rosy type ones kind of get within that relative appeal. There's a good aspect for like some night gleam and just overall glay romanticness. I'd have to say just within the pitch. Very effective. These work pretty heavily, I'd say. And I probably have to say Marie Laveau is another nice one for that as well. It's a little bit more entry, just initial kind of initial mingler, but it still works within the pitch behind it. I'd say another one for like some social kind of jive on here would be World Famous Extravaganza. Great way to kick off this particular album for the most part. I mean, great way to kick off this album for the most part, I'd have to say. I mean, it's definitely a good bop to kind of get. It has a learning curve towards it, but once you get past that, it's a real immediate type one. And just another stock highlight to kind of get. It's like some stock cabaret kind of social kickoff. I would definitely feel like this goes with Drunk Romeos, Ode to Drunk Romeos, and Drinksky. Some of those type ones kind of get just standard Ghostfire type pitch, or like they're more up tempo type snap of ones, just to really get tore up in pitches like that. And it's just a great song to get loose too. To kind of combine some of that, just really I'm glad that this is like the spiritual successor to Ghostfire. It's just a good pitch, just because I know folks would probably say, Ghostfire, what happened to them? When you think of like the Last Steampunk Waltz and Hand of Glory and some of those type of songs, some of Ghostfire's biggest songs, some of their hits off of Drunk Lullabies and some of their lesser known type songs that I'd have to say with that sort of quality. It's just good stock, more hits to kind of get some of their strengths and just be able to nail it as well as they do. So Mystery is definitely pretty quality. It's just an excellent type pitch that he was able to create another band and just nailed that same kind of cabaret type style and be able to nail it just within that pitch. It's definitely a good lane to kind of have here. I think this is just a very outlandish kind of vibe. The thing about steampunk is it's a very outlandish kind of vibe that has its appeal just within the tone behind it. So it's just an excellent type pitch to kind of get some of these and just have like some quality. If like standard, just like this is definitely some haunting type stuff to kind of get here. So if like the standard gothic stuff like Korn, Marilyn Manson, Mushroom Head, some of those type folks get tiresome within a relative kind of contemporary sense. It's like a good alternative to that to kind of try some new stuff and kind of switch the tone up. I'd say it's a good pitch. Jack the Knife's another excellent one. It's like a cabaret kind of makeshift evening dredge. I'd have to say just a good song for going to step out for it's like a good song for going to step out for some enjoy. I'd have to say here, and it's like a good dusky primer. I definitely feel like, but the song's pretty spooky. So this one's kind of like a horrorcore type rock song within a sense. It's kind of a haunting type pitch about it. Do definitely like the pitch behind it, but this just definitely feels like some excitement of just got done with workshift. Just the relative tone, pretty much something that you could listen to within the last hour and a half of just workshift pitches like that. Good concept, just getting ready to get turned up for a bit, whether it's just like a more steampunk type party or just something that you just kind of feel in a more just relative kind of, let's have more waltz type mood in mind. I'd say this is a good pitch for some of that, just real good tone to kind of have, just switch things up. Now, a lot of this does have some contemporary flavor about it. There is like moments just to be able to say it's not, this is the tone between having like workshift, blue collar type fare just within the concept of like a more shanty and just kind of more cabaret type feel just within that relative pitch. Just some good throwback type vibes that kind of combine that. I feel like songs like Jack the Knife, Thieves. I feel like songs like Jack the Knife, Ode to Drunk Romeos, and probably like No Sympathies are like some good ones for like some relative good traverse kind of dredge as far as those pitches kind of having just a good concept, kind of get some of that, just a good makeshift type album just within a relative haunted sense. It continues those strengths that Ghostfire kind of has. So I'm trying to think of some other songs I haven't talked about here. I'm trying to think. I don't know if I talked about Against the Wall, but this is one of the best songs on the album, I'd have to say. So if I did talk about this, I'll just scrap this. But basically, this is like a woozy kind of night venue sludge, I'd have to say about this one. Nice after hours kind of roused of a song to kind of get here. Basically has some real good appeal. This is like a good foot tap and good groove. This is like a nice foot tapper of a beat on here. Just real nice instrumentation on this one. Just has a good groove and overall club snap about this one. So this has some radio appeal. I would definitely feel like about it. This is like a good bouncy, one of the most immediate ones to kind of go for here. Just a good, nice pitch to kind of get with some of this. Another rousing type one, just like another rousing type one, just like Thieves in the Night. I'd have to say just in the tone behind it. Some of these type ones, like I feel like these kind of have more snap about it than certain songs by Ghostfire. I'd say Ghostfire definitely had that, but it's just more of a learning curve. So it's a good adaptation just to be able to get towards some of this and just have more polishes within that relative appeal. This is actually one that feels like it could be in like a nightclub that would play like cabaret type music just within the tone behind it. I just would look after it. Just question overall some of that bite that it just would particularly kind of have. I feel like Marie Laveau, Against the Wall, Ode to Drunk Romeos, Thieves in the Night, some of these type ones, Drink Ski Song. There's actually a number of songs on here that just really do feel like pretty contemporary just within the tone behind it. This is a little bit, I might actually almost recommend starting off with this particular album if you want some cabaret more so than Ghostfire. I mean, obviously, like the last Steampunk Waltz EP with the two songs on there is a real immediate type one to kind of go for it, to embrace some of that particular style. But this is actually probably one of the more inspired type ones to kind of get for like some of that commercial gloss, just as the way it nails it. Just has a lot of relative good rock type appeal within a retro sense. It's good stuff. Trying to think of what else I haven't talked about on here. I don't think I've talked about Ode to Drunk Romeo. So it's like a grand kind of evening excitement, I'd have to say. And it's like a grand kind of evening excitement, I'd have to say. It's like some in motion kind of workshift aftermath, I'd feel like. And it's like a solid kind of retro dance noise kind of get here. This is another one that just feels like stock Ghostfire in their prime as far as those pitches will kind of effectively kind of having just another excellent type pitch to kind of get some of those turn up type ones. Feels like The Man off of like 2011 album. I forget what that's called. The Tyburn Jig. Some of those type pitches. Just some of those more up tempo type ones. It's good. Definitely got the concept about this particular product is the social appeal behind it. Just has a lot of snap to be able to kind of get you out your seat just within the tone. I mean, even if I do probably feel like it probably needed another song like Against the Wall or another good relative bar hop type rock song, or another good bar hop type bop like Marie Laveau. I mean, it definitely has more social bite on here. I'm glad that for the most part it is pretty contemporary within a cabaret type sense. That's a good appeal. But talk about some of these songs I didn't recommend on here. Basically, like the concept behind it. The Flying Dutchman was kind of one of these more hardcore type ones. I mean, this is really one that you have to be a lot more just in tune with this particular style to appreciate more. This is less of a casual type one. It's a little bit tougher to kind of get towards. It's a little bit tougher one to get towards full blown. I have to say it's not like a horrible song, but this is kind of the pitch that just has a lot more. This one's just not one of the more immediate ones to kind of go for. Absinthe Friends, so it's just kind of like a more homely type one, like a relative jive to a sense. It's kind of trying to be almost like a cabaret type house party type song, but just didn't really pull off the vibe that well. Just didn't really pull off the vibe that well, I'd have to say. Old Vampirette's Tale this was too lengthy a song on here. I kind of feel like about this particular one. It was just too lengthy a song on here. I'd have to say in particular, just didn't appreciate the overall amalgamation synchronized as to how that pitch kind of went. I mean, it has most of the traits about this particular album, like in trying to be the strengths of it, but it just doesn't pull it off as and compared to some of this album's best moments, like Thieves in the Night, Drink Ski Song, Jack the Knife, World Famous Extravaganza, some of those type ones. It probably should have been shortened by about 2.5 minutes and just had more snap towards it. It probably would have worked better. And then I already talked about not recommending House of Ill Repute. That one just didn't really like the amalgamation behind it. It was just kind of was another homely type one, just in the tone that just didn't nail it nearly as well. That's the thing. But me basically recommending like 8.5 songs out of 13 on here. I'm going to go ahead and give this album like a 7.75. Definitely like the direction that this album was heading. Had a lot of good social bite about it. The social score is probably going to get a higher score. So overall, appreciate the impact. I'm glad that Mr. E decided to continue like his particular style with like a new band and continue to help advance like cabaret type styles and steampunk, some of those type pitches. Just has a lot of good fun moments. It's a breath of fresh air, just a new taste of things as far as those pitches kind of particularly happen, as far as adapting like the Ghostfire style and continuing to improve on it just within those pitches to being able to have more quality type bops on here and just be able to get towards it. So I just would have to say if this project is findable within the pitch, if it's not as tough to find as like some of these other Ghostfire type projects, I would definitely, if it's not as tough to find as some of these Ghostfire type projects are, I would definitely recommend fucking with it, even just buying it off Amazon, some pitches like that, just good type pitch. But the social score I'm going to go ahead and give, I'll probably give the social score like an 8.75 out of 10 because it had a lot of good appeal off this particular product. The only reason why I wouldn't get like a 9 or something higher is just because of the factoid of just saying, I just look after it. Didn't really have any singles. Just feel like the promotion's still relatively low key, and some of the most popular songs on here, like songs like House of Ill Repute, are just a misrepresentation of this particular album in terms of the quality and just the immediate factors. Definitely some good dance snap on here to be able to get. Definitely a good taste of some energy to be able to have for like some good cabaret type bops and beer swelling pitches like that, some standard flirty type pitches just within that relative type aspect of a more fantasy and just more kind of just offhanded but still kind of quality type pitch. Steampunk is a nice niche to be able to get here for some of that type of appeal. It's definitely a good steampunk is definitely like a good breath of fresh air to be able to try out, just be able to have sometimes. It has the makeshift songs on here, so it does have some work centric type stuff. It's actually a livable type style if you want to live in this world for a while. It has a number of projects. There's plenty of steampunk bands pitch like that, be able to have some of this, just be able to appreciate that pitch. It actually has some apple type snap. These folks are not squares. They have some good jive about it, so they are getting out and about, getting turned up, some of those type pitches. So it definitely has some apple snaps. This kind of concept seemingly didn't have a single, doesn't have much notoriety in terms of like its availability and just pitches like that. So I just would say this kind of feels like, this is, it's kind of, and it has a learning curve on top of that. So this is kind of the taste, if folks are not quite as hip to Ghostfire, it just takes some of the more immediate type songs to kind of get that factor. And it just feels like some of the most popular songs on Spotify just don't represent that, but it's this kind of thing. There are some ones on here. I would definitely say Drinksky Song, World Famous Extravaganza, Thieves in the Night, uh, up against the wall, Marie Laveau, some of those type ones, even in certain senses, Murder of Crows, some of those type pitches. There's a good, pretty much half the album has some of that particular snap out of Jack the Knife, some of these type ones, just without to say. That's kind of the pitch. So in terms of the future, like the Filthy Spectaculars at least dropped 3 albums. They dropped another album in 2019. They have at least another one in 2020 or 2021, some pitches like that. So I'll have to get to some of these. Is that to say about it. I'm actually pretty inspired about this particular band because this was a quality type record here. Definitely has some good stuff that I want to purchase if I can find it as far as those pitches kind of happen. So it's an excellent type one here. It has a little bit of diciness, but for the most part, this is like a pretty overwhelming type victory. Kind of get with some fun highlights.